Okay. Um, I think you just need to mute yourself. Okay, wonderful. All right. So we went over our guide, our roadmap. We went over our introduction. So inshallah, we can now begin. So with our business and money fundamentals. So we start off with the very topic of what is business and what is its purpose. And this is where we really separate ourselves, the purpose from the Islamic worldview and the secular capitalistic worldview. But to start with what is business, at its very core, if you look at any business that's out there, whether it's a large business such as Apple, Walmart, or whether it's a new small business owner who opens up a lemonade shop in the corner, it all boils down to the exchange of goods or a service for a monetary profit, right? You look at Walmart, you look at Apple, what are we doing? We are giving them our money in exchange of a service or a product. Likewise, if we go to, a new business owner, we're doing the exact same thing. We're giving our money in exchange for some sort of service or some sort of good. That's what business completely boils down to, right? And the purpose of a business is to generate profit. So it's for a monetary profit. If it weren't for a profit, then it would be, a nonprofit charitable organization. But businesses are typically for the purpose of earning a profit. The second thing to keep in mind is a business is there to provide a beneficial service. Now, that's not part of the definition, but it's implied. Why? Because the only reason you or anyone else would give up your hard-earned money is if you believed that that product or that service was beneficial, was something of value to your life. It's going to change your quality of life. It's going to increase it, right? No one gives away their money for something that is going to be a complete waste. Now, whether it actually is or not, that's a whole different story. But if a person believes something is really good for them, if a person believes this item or the service is going to be a benefit to them, then people will willingly give up their money. So the second aspect of business is that it has to be a beneficial service or product. And the reason why we're emphasizing this is many times when people get into business or they're already operating and running their business and they ask themselves, how can I make more money? Or how can I make my business successful? What can I sell? Sometimes a good way of answering that question is by looking at what problems can I solve for people, because people will pay in order to have their problem solved. So it has to be something beneficial. What benefit can I provide to someone? And the way we find the benefit is by finding a problem. What is a problem that people are going through and there are no solutions to it, or maybe the solutions that we have are mediocre? So what kind of benefit can I provide? So as soon as you learn to provide some sort of benefit to someone, you automatically have now a business idea, a profit idea in mind. And then lastly, the purpose of business is to please Allah. When we say please Allah, what we mean by that is we hope to expect reward from Allah on the Day of Judgment. And this is integral because when we're starting a business and we ask ourselves, on the Day of Judgment, will Allah reward me for this business or not? Because as Muslims, we don't believe, our belief is that our personal, private, public, business, commercial, all these areas of our life are one, right? It's not that we are only Muslims when we're in the masjid. It's not that we're only Muslims when, on the day of Eid. We're Muslims 24/7, all the time. Whether we're with our families, whether we're at school, whether we are, in a commercial setting or at business or work, we're still a Muslim. So the question ends up being is that what we are doing, will it be a means of reward for us in the hereafter? So when we have this as a foundation, as a cornerstone, anyone intending to start a business, they're going to ask themselves, this business venture that I'm embarking on, this enterprise, will it be a source of reward for me in the hereafter, or is it going to detract me from Allah, or is it inherently problematic? So this is the basics and foundation of business. Any sort of business you look at, this is what it is. It's the exchange of goods or services, or both, for a monetary profit, and it provides a beneficial service. And for us as Muslims, our Islamic worldview is that our businesses are also a way to earn reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so now we get into some examples of businesses, right? Commodities and services. So we said at the very essence, at the very core of business is a service or a product or a good in exchange of money. So commodities are usually, products, tangible products.
Okay. Do you have somebody just texted me that they did not get the link for class?
Did they register?
Rida, you have Rida?
So she actually opted out, unsubscribed from the emails. That's why she didn't receive it.
She's sorry.
I let me text you the let me text you the what is this? The link, and then you can forward it to her.
Well, while he was away, teachers, I think she opted out. Yeah, I think she registered. Oh, okay, so she is registered. Okay, all right. So okay, we'll send you. Now is this spelling? I'll send you the link and then you pass it over. See. Thank you for getting just give it a minute. So
Yeah, no problem.
I know the first class is always
Yeah.
logistics, right? So you will catch up, right? So
Yeah, that's
we
not a
don't
problem.
want our participants to lose out, and on this information. This is something that's a great information. हाँ रिदा को कहोगे वो उस पे जूम पे अपने व्हाट्सएप पे चेक करें आई सेंड द लिंक जल्दी से बताओ लेट मी आई मीन लेट मी ठीक है
Okay, so, start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, so now we get back into, so we just went over the fundamentals and basics of businesses and how they're formed. So let's kind of give a few examples so that it helps us understand that concept a little bit better. So we said that a business is the exchange or trade of money for a service or a product, which is implied that it's beneficial, it's good for someone. So let's look at a few examples. And the purpose of these examples are to highlight that a business can have multiple services. It can be a product-based commodity or product-based business, and it can have a service sector to it as well. Likewise, it can be fundamentally or primarily service-based, but it can also have a product aspect to it as well. So let's look at Apple. Apple is commodities and services. They sell tangible items and they also sell services. For tangible items, we know what they sell. They sell cell phones, they sell watches, they sell laptops. But what about services? What sort of services does Apple sell? Any guesses, any idea? Go ahead.
For example, if you for a earphone.
Yeah. So they have their repair services. Another thing people sometimes forget is Apple also has their cloud-based services, their monthly subscription, that if you want to use their cloud to save all your information, then that comes with a monthly subscription. So that's a mix of services and a product, right? It's not a tangible product, but it's nevertheless a product. Amazon. So I asked this question to the students: what business is Amazon in? Many of them were not able to answer. Let's see. Let's give it a try with you guys. What sort of business is Amazon in?
They are in logistics.
Would you say they are in the
Distribution, right?
They are in logistic, broadcasting,
Buying of products, and also Amazon has cloud services.
Yeah.
Which,
so
you can tap into your.
Very, very good, very good. So when people look at Amazon, they right off the bat, they assume that Amazon is in the business of retailing goods. Mm-hmm. But Amazon is actually a platform that allows people to sell their products. So although Amazon has their line of, Amazon basics and whatnot, but at the very core, Amazon is, you can think of it as a huge mall where smaller shops and smaller vendors bring their goods and they sell retail. So Amazon is really a platform. So that's another business idea. They're really, in a way, a brokerage where they broker the sale of retail goods. So that's another aspect of so at its core, Amazon is really a service-based business. And then you look at AWS, you look at Amazon fulfillment. These are all aspects of their service-based business. And then they also have certain products, which is, their Amazon basics lineup and collection. So the reason why we're highlighting these examples is that if anyone has any sort of business ideas, or if someone is running their own business, they can now start thinking of using these examples to see if, hey, is there any way that I can expand my current business as well, right? Walmart is primarily a retail outlet. So very similar to Amazon, Walmart is a brick and mortar version of Amazon, right? Amazon has their large retail stores and then different manufacturers. So Amazon is interesting. Walmart is interesting because they have two lines of business. So they do what we call B2B and B2C. B2B is business to business. So Walmart has business transactions with other businesses, meaning the manufacturers and the wholesalers. And then Walmart in return retails those products B2C, business to consumer. So to the general public are like ourselves, Walmart, Target, that's what they do, right? So Walmart buys wholesale, sells it retail price to us. So they have two forms of business transactions, one with the manufacturers, B2B, and then one with the consumer, B2C, right? Along with that, Walmart also owns their brick and mortar stores. They own real estate. They have, I don't think Walmart is a publicly traded company. I don't think so, right? Walmart doesn't sell stocks, right? I think, yeah, I don't think so. But regardless, Walmart is primarily retail commodities, right? In a way, they're also service-based. Why? Because they are dealing directly with the manufacturers, right? They are providing a service to the manufacturer where they're allowing them to display their items on their shelves. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
Is that similar to, like, for example, a wholesale club like Costco, like they buy goods from like other, I guess, distributors or manufacturers, and then the B2C aspect is like when you go to Costco, you buy like, I don't know, eggs or milk or something.
Yeah. They're all similar. I think with Costco, it's just they have a different model where they sell more in bulk. But let's think about it like this. Let's say you come out with a product line, right? Maybe it's a clothing product line, or maybe it's some sort of food. And now you can approach Walmart and say, listen, on my own, I've been pretty successful. I want to put these on your shelves. So in that regard, Walmart is now providing a service to you where they're allowing you to display your products, your items on their shelves for a certain percentage of the sales, right? So that's that. And then getting into real estate brokerage is really a service that they're providing, which is facilitating the transaction. So Walmart, in a way, ends up being a broker between the manufacturer and the consumer. Amazon tends to be very similar, where they facilitate the sale of retail products. Apple, on the other hand, is they design, manufacture their own, and then they sell it, right? So these are all the different types of commodities and services. You can think of another example would be like a plumber or an HVAC technician. They don't sell any particular product, but they do sell a service. Now, one of the things we'll explore is how do you go from being in a service-based industry and how do you go from being in a service-based industry to and expanding your business? Because the entire essence of a service-based industry is that you're providing that service. It's not like, hey, I'm going to manufacture 200,000 cups. I'm going to put it in the shelf and I'm going to wait around for it to sell. And as there's more demand, I'm going to supply more. With service, it's as long as I'm available, I'm going to provide that service. So we'll talk a little bit about that. All right. Now, before we get into that, we want to get into the cash flow quadrant. The cash flow quadrant is essentially an overview of the different ways a person can earn an income. One of the first books that I read when I got into real estate was this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it's interesting. There's a lot of business podcasts and interviews that I listen to. And many of the guests are asked, what's the first book you read, or what's the one book that's impacted you the most? And this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, comes up 8 out of 10 times. This one book has had such a huge impact on so many people. It's worth mentioning and it's worth reading. But it's one of those books that are going to give you a complete mental paradigm shift. Reason being is it helps you shift your mindset from being from the traditional mindset of I'm going to school, getting an education, getting a job, and staying in that job until I retire. And I'm going to have a pension. I'm going to have, a 401k, so on and so forth. Now, there's nothing wrong in doing that. But if that's the only way, if that's your only plan, then a lot of people are going to be in trouble because the world is shifting. And not only that, but there are other options that are out there. So this is going to go over the cash flow quadrant, the 4 ways that an individual can earn income. And now there's pros and cons to both. That's one thing I'll mention. And the second thing is you don't have to just be in one box. You can be in multiple sectors, right? And we'll give you an example of that. So the first is I want to talk about the active income, which is when you're an employee, right? When you're an employee, what are you doing? You have a job, right? You trade your time for money and you don't really have leverage. What do we mean? What do we mean by leverage? Leverage means that we do not have a way to grow and scale that business, right? So take, for example, let's say, someone is an employee, they are even a high paid employee, like a doctor, they work for the hospital, right? They get paid based on the amount of hours they work and provide their service to the hospital. Are they able to leverage themselves? The only way to leverage themselves is if they can clone themselves and get duplicates of themselves and make themselves work 24 hours. But if they miss work, if they have, if they miss work that they haven't planned for, or if they completely stop working, that money stops. So that's what we mean by leverage. So when you are an employee, you are trading your money for time. Likewise, when you are self-employed, so a lot of people get into real estate or businesses, service-based businesses, and although they're not working for someone, it doesn't necessarily mean that they now have their own business, right? They went from being an employee to being a self-employed individual. And the self-employed individual is the same concept. Self-employed individual is you are trading your time for your money, right? So if we take the example of a plumber or a real estate agent, they get their real estate license, or maybe they get their credentials to become a plumber. So long as they are putting time into the business, they can expect to earn an income. As soon as they say, I'm going to go on a 2-month vacation, and they're no longer involved in the business, the money stops, right? So that's self-employed. So when you're an employee, you have a job. When you're self-employed, you own a job. And the similarity between the two is that you trade your time for your money. As soon as you stop putting in your time, the money cuts off. Now we look at the other half of the quadrant, which is where we have the capacity to actually leverage our time and leverage our resources. So a business owner is a person who owns a system and people work for that business. So in this situation, the people and the system are what earns you money, and you have that leverage. So you can run a business, and you can step out of that business for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 months, and that business will still continue to generate a profit for you, money for you. Why? Because you have systems in place and you have people managing those systems, right? So if you are self-employed, understand, and this is where a lot of people mess up, that they quit their jobs and they become self-employed, whether it's an accountant, an attorney, whatever the case, even, a doctor who owns their own practice. You are now self-employed. You don't technically own a business. You own a business when you have something you can sell to someone. And what do you sell to someone? You sell systems and clients to people. So let's say an attorney, a lawyer, they decide to quit their full-time law practice and they want to open up their own business. They want to open up their own practice. So the next day they open up their own law firm. What is this person? What do you think this person is? Is this person a business owner or self-employed? Self-employed, right?
At least that's our.
At least initially. But as the self-employed individual builds up their business, they now have a book of business. They have a database of clients. So that's where the money is, right? These are the people, this database here is what's generating you income. And then around that database, they have systems in place to streamline the business. And then they have people overseeing the management of those systems. So maybe the attorney starts as self-employed, but over the next 2 years, they focus and work on building a database. They create systems and processes, and they hire people to manage those systems and processes. And now they have a business. And now what he or she can do is put that business up for sale. They can say, my list of 2,000 people, my database, along with all the systems and processes that I've put into place, along with the people that I have hired to manage and implement these systems, I'm now selling this. I'm now selling this for X amount of dollars, and business valuation is a whole different story, right? So the concept over here is that the main point is there's a huge difference between being a business owner and being self-employed, right? Most business owners start as being self-employed, and then from there on, they build their business. But the problem here is that many people start self-employed and they never realize that they don't actually own a business. And 10, 20 years of their life goes by, their career goes by, and they catch themselves. They're like, oh my gosh, I don't have a business. There's nothing for me to sell. I don't have a retirement plan now. I don't have an exit strategy, right? The exit strategy with a business is that one day you sell it and you walk away, right? So that's that. And then the last part over here is you're an investor. And when you're an investor, you have money that makes you money, right? Money works for you. And we'll talk a little bit about this because as Muslims, we have some restrictions on, interest and whatnot. But the general concept here is that you are leveraging your money, and whether you're investing or you're building a partnership, you're handing money to someone and you're not physically involved, right? So you on this side over here, where you're either a business owner or an investor, you are no longer trading time for money, right? You have the luxury of now putting these things into place once or twice and then being able to step out, right? So as we mentioned, there's pros and cons to both, right? There's pros and cons to all of these aspects. What do you think the idea of having a business where people are working, you have systems in place and money is generating, the idea of being an investor where you put your money to work for you and you're not actively involved, it sounds nice, but what do you think some of the cons of those two quadrants may be? Any idea? What do you think the cons are, or the downsides?
Risk of
Yeah, there's risk, and also it's not as easily accessible, right? It's not something that is accessible to someone, let's say, who just graduated from college, right? So there's pros and cons to both. There's downsides, but the most important thing to keep in mind is that you don't have to limit yourself to just one quadrant. You can be in all. I know a teacher who is also a real estate agent. So she's an employee, self-employed. She owns real estate properties. So she has investments. And then she has a business on Etsy. Right. So this one individual is in all four quadrants, right? So the idea of this is to help you expand your horizons and understand that, hey, there are different ways to earn an income, and let's look into those different incomes, right? Those different ways. Okay, so now we get into our business fundamentals. So we spoke about the basics of business. We spoke about we gave examples. We spoke about how money comes in, the income, the flow of money. Now let's talk about what you need to have in place if you want to start a business. There's 4 fundamentals, right? Any sort of business you look at, Walmart, Amazon, Apple, any large business, Verizon, whatever the case, they have 4 fundamentals. The first is there's research and development, right? And here's the thing, all these 4 things are constantly ongoing. It's not you do it once and you leave it, they're ongoing, right? First is research and development. Any business, again, like we said, they have to provide a beneficial service, right? Why do you think Nokia, where 10 years ago or 15 years ago, they were the leading phone company, cell phone company, or cell phone manufacturer, is hardly in business anymore? Because they failed to adapt. So they lacked their research and development. They made a big mistake of not stepping into the touchscreen world, and that was primarily due to their research and development, or lack of research and development. Likewise, if you're starting a business, you don't just start a business haphazardly. You don't just say, I have a bunch of junk laying around in my house, I'm going to go and, sell these things. There's research and development involved in order to determine whether or not it's worth your time. It's worth the headache and the hassle. Then we get into marketing and sales. Marketing and sales is essentially where you attract the right people for your business. You expose your business to the right people. You can have the best product, the best service, the best item, but if no one knows about it, no one's gonna ever buy it, right? Next is fulfillment and delivery. You have a great product, people want to buy it, and now how do you how do you deliver and fulfill either your service or product, right? You're a plumber. Someone says, hey, I want you to come and install the plumbing for my basement that I want to finish off. So now you have to fulfill that service. And then last is your operations, all the back end stuff, the money that's flowing in, the money that's flowing out, all the systems that you have in place, your database that you're constantly managing, all those are your operations, right? So these are the 4 fundamentals of your business. And as a business grows, you can have different segments and sectors in each, so let's think about Apple. It's not, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, he's not the one doing the research and development. He's not the one in marketing, sales, fulfillment. He's overseeing the different sectors that are involved in these different parts of the business. And then again, within these parts, there can be multiple different, silos, whatever it may be. It could be research and development for a current product, for a future product, or whatever the case, right? But this is the fundamental. If you are a business owner, you have to keep in mind that these are ongoing things, or you're self-employed and you want to transition from being self-employed to a business owner. These are the 4 things that need to be in place. And initially, it may be one person doing all this. So if you're self-employed, let's give the example of the plumber. The plumber may be the one doing all this, but as they grow their business, they can now start hiring people to take care of each segment, right? So it could get to the point where this self-employed plumber goes from being a one-man show, where they are now doing the research and development. First, they determine, where am I going to get my customers from? Because plumbers are in demand. In fact, I think there's a shortage of plumbers. It's always so hard to find them, licensed plumbers. So a plumber is now doing their research and development in the sense where am I going to get my main customers from? Is it going to be profitable for me to service the commercial sector or a residential sector or a mix of both. Then, they may say, how do I market myself and my business? Then he's the one that is doing this, actually providing the fulfillment of the services. And then, at night or during the weekends, he's the one that is taking care of all the operations. But as his business grows and his time it gets more and more limited because there's more demand for his services, he may decide that, okay, now I want to hire someone to take care of my operations. I want someone to take care of all the payments, all the invoices, all the receipts, right? So he hires someone to take care of the operations. Now he gets so busy and there's so many people calling him, he may decide to hire someone under him to help with the fulfillment, right? Likewise, now he sees that, hey, there's two of us, I need more business coming in. Now he may decide to hire a marketing specialist. So from there on, you can see how an individual self-employed grew their business and now actually has a business, right? They hired someone to take care of the operations, manage the database and the systems. He has 5 plumbers under him where he's feeding them business. He has a marketing specialist, and then he's still involved with the research and development, right? So that's the transition from self-employed to business owner. And you can do the same thing if you're in real estate, which is similar to what happened with me, where I started off as a single real estate salesperson. From there, hiring an assistant to take care of the operations, and then from there, hiring a marketing specialist to bring in more business. And then once there was an overflow of business or more than for me to handle, then bringing in more agents, partnering with more agents in my team. So now I can take a step back and say, I have someone taking care of the operations. If there's people who need real estate services, I can direct them to my team, and they're out there, they're doing the fulfillment, and I'm kind of managing it, right? And then finally, the last would be to be able to completely step out and have a manager. So now I'm the manager. The goal is to hire a manager who can overlook everything. So even if I want to completely, go away for 6 months, I know the manager is taking care of everything, right? So that's the big picture over there. That's the that's the transition. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to delve into each one of these: research and development, marketing and sales, fulfillment and delivery, and operations. Since we started a little bit late, we're going to go for 10 more minutes, inshallah. And we had a few bumps in between as well. All right. So research and development. So one thing we mentioned is that, all these 4 fundamentals are ongoing. It never stops. So research and development. This is the time where you determine your market, you determine your product and services, you determine your client base. This is where you create a business plan, you test your ideas. And the entire purpose of research and development is to ensure your business will be profitable, right? Let's take the example of Nokia, right? If Nokia did their research and they developed a product that would be in direct competition with the iPhone, they would have still been a major competitor, right? So it's not a one-time thing, it's an ongoing thing, right? If you're starting a new business, you want to determine your market, your industry. So there's 2 things. You want to determine whether or not that industry is in demand, right? Because every market has a cap. Some things are just in more demand than other things, right? We know that anything medical related has a huge cap, an unlimited cap, versus, let's say, you get into the market for being a dog trainer, right? There's a much lower cap for that. So first and foremost, you want to determine the market you're getting into. is there a large enough pie to grab, a piece of the pie to grab? Then from there, okay, let's say we want to get into the medical field. Medical field is huge. So now you determine what sector of the medical field you want to get to. So let's say, we want to start a health and wellness care center, right? Now we need to determine our database, our client base. Who are we looking to serve? And initially, one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is that they want to be everything for everyone. And they dilute their services so much that they end up attracting no one. So the key over here is to really determine who your ideal client base is, and then design a product specifically for them, right? Then you want to create a business plan. And next session we'll actually get into the tools of the tools and the techniques and methods and models of creating a business plan. But before you actually invest all your money and time and you jump into it, you want to test your ideas. You want to test your ideas to see if whether or not this is going to be profitable, and more importantly, if it's something you're going to enjoy, right? What I tell people who want to get into real estate is, before you quit your job, before you spend time and money getting licensed, why don't you go and shadow a real estate brokerage or a real estate agent? See if you like the nature of that job, right? And it may be that you hate it, right? Likewise, if you want to get into IT, maybe go sit with an IT person. Are you okay with the idea of sitting in front of a computer, right? Doing all that. Because at the end of the day, people get into business to earn money, but if they're miserable while they're doing it, they're not going to enjoy it. So you want to find something that you want to test your ideas. You don't want to jump completely 100% in before you're sure that this is something you would enjoy doing, and this is going to be worth your time, both mentally, emotionally, and financially. So next we move into marketing and sales. And in marketing and sales, and we'll delve into this in more detail, but essentially marketing and sales can be broken down into two segments, direct marketing and indirect marketing. And the purpose is to bring your product or your service to the attention of your prospective clients. So sales is a matter of, okay. So when we talk marketing and sales, there's a little bit of a difference, right? Sales is a matter of converting prospective clients to actual clients. So marketing is where you get the people who are interested. And then sales is a matter of taking those people and then converting them to actual clients, right? So let's talk a little bit about direct and indirect marketing. What do you think a form of indirect marketing or direct marketing would be? Any examples, ideas?
Indirect marketing maybe is like word of mouth advertising.
Yeah. Indirect marketing would be something like putting up a billboard, right? Putting up a billboard where hundreds and thousands of cars are driving by. Is it good? Is it bad? It depends. For a company like Apple, it's great because they already have brand recognition, right? For an unknown company that just started, that is a total waste of money. Because if they take that, I once inquired how much it would cost to put up a sign on a billboard, not even like on the NJ Turnpike, maybe like, what was it, on Route 73. And this was like 3 years ago. It was $5,000 a month. So if you put up a sign, if you put up a billboard on the NJ Turnpike, I can only imagine it being like $8,000 to $10,000 a month. So if you think about a new business, they can bring in so much more clients and sales using that $8,000 using direct marketing. What is direct marketing? Direct marketing is targeted marketing. where take this example. You have someone who goes out and hunts. They go out into the woods and they find a deer and they go after it and they hunt it. That's direct marketing. Indirect marketing is they lay a trap and then they go home, and then the next day they come back and like, okay, I didn't catch anything, I'm going to go back home. So when you put up a billboard, you have no way of tracking whether or not that particular billboard is what got you a new client. Of course, unless you say text this particular number and you track all that, but generally speaking, right? With direct marketing, let's say you're a plumber, right? How do we direct market as a plumber? First, we find our location. Let's say we're going to service this Mount Holly area. It's interesting how much data there is. You can find a third-party company to give you a list of all the properties, let's say, that are 50 years old. Why? Because you know that after 50 years, certain pipes need to be changed. Like in Willingboro, Levittown, Bordentown, Trenton, there were these properties that were built in 1960s, and around now is when the sewer pipes are breaking down, are deteriorating. So every property we sell in Willingboro, most of the time needs a new sewer pipe. And a new sewer pipe can cost anywhere between $8,000 to $10,000. So as a plumber, I'm getting a list of all the properties that were built in 1950 and onwards. Maybe I even say just from 1940 to 1960. And then I start marketing to those particular homeowners. Hey, have you looked into getting a new sewer pipe? Right? That's direct marketing. Versus me putting up a billboard on the highway saying, do you need a new sewer pipe? Right? So that's the idea between direct and indirect marketing. Direct marketing is we're going after a targeted group. Indirect marketing is where you're just throwing out a net, right? So that's that. Okay, now fulfillment and delivery, pretty straightforward. This is the part where you exchange money for the actual service or product. So I go to Apple Store, I give them my money, they give me a new phone, right? You're a plumber, you pay me and I complete the plumbing job, or I do it first and then you pay me, whatever the case. So that's the pretty straightforward part over there. Now the operations, this is where a lot of people mess up. Why? Because generally people who get into business don't like to do operations, right? They like to just do what they like to do, which is sales, marketing, doing the actual fulfillment. And that's why a lot of business owners, if they try doing the operations on their own, they completely mess up.
Yeah.
So they have to outsource someone. And then operations end up being a full-time job where if you're involved in managing the operations, you don't get to go out and grow your business, right? So what is operations? Creating, implementing, managing systems, financials, and accounting. And the purpose is to ensure that the business is running smoothly, right? That you have standard operating procedures. Is this on? What happened here?
The cable by that.
It's weird.
Um,
Okay, there we go. All right, yeah. So that's the purpose of operations. Okay, so now we recap everything that we went over. So we learned what business and its purpose is. And the big takeaway over there is that as Muslims, our purpose of business is to seek a reward from Allah. That our business, inshallah, as we're growing it, as we're investing time into it and money into it and our energy into it, it will also be a source of reward for us in the hereafter. We spoke about two types of businesses, which is, service-based and commodity-based. actually 3 types because you can have both service and commodities. And we went over the 4 ways to earn an income: employed, self-employed, business owner, and investor. And finally, we went over the 4 fundamentals of every business, which is research and development, marketing and sales, operations, and what was the other one? Fulfillment and delivery. Yeah. So that's everything for today, inshallah. And next week what we'll do is we'll get into actually starting a business, which is how do you start with a business plan? How do you actually test your ideas? What do you need to research and develop, so on and so forth. So we'll get into that. And what we'll cover is entrepreneurial characteristics, because quite frankly, not everyone is built to run their own business, because there's a lot of risk involved with that, right? So that's that. So any questions before you wrap up? Any questions from the Zoom viewers, Zoom audience?
And they are okay, everything, they logistically, they are fine,
Yeah, I think they should be fine.
they are registered, and you wanna just repeat that. You just say it either way.
Yeah, so I think everyone that's on Zoom has already registered. Just a reminder that if you have not made your one-time contribution to Masjid Shuhada, inshallah, please do so through Zelle. And
If they don't have Zelle, they can contact me, and then we can coordinate through some other.
okay, yeah, if you don't have Zelle, just let us know. Yeah. And what else? Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, email us, or whatever the case. But if no one has any questions, then inshallah we can wrap up.
Yeah, so people can continue to join Zoom, and then wherever like this group.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna continue having it on Zoom and in person. Yeah, inshallah. Okay.
Same time,
9 to 10.
9
9 to 10.
I know we went
Correct.
over,
Yeah.
but just so that
Yeah,
we-
today we went a little bit.
everyone's time.
Yeah, we had some technical difficulties, but inshallah next week we'll try to be here
Sure.
on 9 and complete at 10, just to be fair and respect everyone's time.
Correct.
Yeah.
So just a question. You mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad. I know my dad has a copy of it, and I
Yeah.
started reading some of it. So I'm just curious, like, will you eventually get to like the difference between an asset versus a liability?
Yeah. Do we cover that here? You know what? Interestingly enough, I think I was supposed to mention it here.
Oh, okay, no.
I didn't make a slide for it. Yeah, I didn't make a slide for it, but yeah, one of the things he talks about, Rich Dad Poor Dad, is he talks about assets and liabilities. Assets are, I actually have to update this. Assets are, well, I'll ask the audience, what do you think, what's the difference between an asset and a liability?
So,
You're reading the book, so.
I have read it a little bit, but an asset is something that is able to generate income for you. And the income is, the income is significantly greater than the expenses involved with maintaining said asset.
Yeah, more or less. So an asset is something that has value and appreciates, whereas a liability is something that actually costs you money to hold on to. So most cars are liabilities, right? Now, if you look at life as assets and liabilities, you're going to have a miserable life. Having children is a liability, right? But they end up being an asset for us in the hereafter, inshallah. So you can't have this black and white mindset. Many of our, I know real estate agents like to say your home is an investment. It's actually a huge liability, because although it appreciates in value, but when a person buys their primary residence, they make updates to that home that most likely will never give them any sort of return. They will spend $100,000 in making a pool, but it's not going to increase the value of the home by 100,000. Next year, when they come to sell it, they probably sell it for $15,000 more. All right. So was that pool? So in one sense, it was a liability because it actually lost, it was a loss of money. But in another way, it was an asset because it increased the quality of a person's life, right? So it's not always about looking at things strictly through a financial lens, that is this a liability or an asset? That's important to take into consideration. But, you know, we also need to look at how does it impact the quality of our lives, right? How does it affect us in the hereafter? Because there's, like I said, there's a lot of good reasons to not have children, right? But and that's a trending movement now, where hey, we don't want to have children because it's a liability. It takes up more time and money, and but again, taking a step back, understanding that our worldview is very different from the secular temporary lifestyle. Children are one of the best assets to have because they continue to earn us reward even after we die. Just like how an investor earns money through money while, you know, they may not be involved. You buy stocks in a company, and I'm not managing that company. I have no idea what's going on, but my stocks are, the value is appreciating. Likewise, your children, you know, you're long gone, and inshallah, you continue to receive reward from your children. So that's the idea. But yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I actually have to add that in here. Anyone else? So if no one else has any questions, then what about from our Zoom users? Anyone have any questions? Oh. Okay, so inshallah, we will wrap this up. Stop share.
Stop recording.
Yeah, I think we can stop recording.